My fiancée secretly tried to evict my parents from my old house to move in her sister, claiming she was the new owner. I broke off the engagement and cut her off. I always cherished the old house where I grew up, small, a bit worn, but full of memories. I inherited it from my grandparents. My parents lived there comfortably, and I never intended to sell it. Even after I moved out and got engaged, I told my fiancée it was off limits. She seemed indifferent, as if the old place wasn't worth her time. But clearly, she had other plans simmering in the background, waiting for a chance to surface. One Monday afternoon, I got a frantic call from my father. "Son, something strange is happening. A lawyer emailed us an eviction notice on your fiancée's behalf." I nearly dropped my phone. My fiancée? Why would she involve an attorney to evict my parents from my own property? My father forwarded me the documents. They stated my fiancée was the new owner and demanded my parents vacate within 30 days. My name was nowhere on that form. It was as if she'd decided unilaterally that the house belonged to her. Shaken, I tried calling her immediately. She didn't pick up. I texted. No response. Confusion mingled with a rising anger that made my stomach churn. That evening, when she finally came home, I confronted her. "What is this about an eviction notice for my parents?" She stared at me, momentarily speechless. Then she recovered, trying to appear casual. "Oh, I was going to talk to you about it. My sister needs a place to stay, somewhere big enough for her and her kids. I figured your parents could find an apartment, and we could let my sister move in instead." I felt my hands shake. "Are you kidding? That house is still in my name. You have zero right to evict my parents." She waved her hand dismissively. "We're engaged. We'll be married soon. That means I'll have a say in your properties. Why can't your parents just live somewhere else?" The entitlement took my breath away. She was acting like I'd signed the deed to her. And her calm assumption that my parents' comfort meant nothing to me infuriated me. I demanded she rescind the notice. She shrugged. "Look, I'm just trying to be practical. My sister's house sold unexpectedly. She's in a pinch, and we have an extra property. Your parents can downsize easily." My rage flared. "Downsize? They've been there for decades. You can't toss them aside like old furniture." Her voice turned chilly. "Why are you being so dramatic? I'm your future wife, and I want my family cared for. If your parents can't handle a move, that's their problem." She then admitted she'd already worked something out with a lawyer friend, forging documents to claim partial ownership, banking on the assumption that once married, she'd have rights. She seemed convinced I'd just roll with her scheme. My mind reeled at the betrayal. "So you tried to evict my parents behind my back to house your sister? Without telling me?" She didn't even blink. "Yes. Because I knew you'd overreact, and my sister's situation is urgent. Don't blow this out of proportion." I stared at her, stunned that she could be so arrogant. It was my name on that deed, and she was orchestrating an entire eviction process like it was a small favor. Right then, I sensed the enormous rift between us, a glimpse of how controlling she could be. My fiancée must have thought I'd cave, like always. She had a habit of pushing her luck, demanding lavish gifts, booking surprise trips on my dime, expecting me to cover her relatives' emergencies. But this was different. This was my parents' home, and she'd launched a secret plan to boot them out. Furious, I told her I'd have my attorney look into these so-called documents. Her reaction was a dismissive snort, as if I was being childish. "Go ahead," she said. "You'll see that once we marry, the house is effectively ours, not just yours." I reminded her we weren't married yet, and that even after a wedding, property law doesn't automatically sign over a pre-owned house to a spouse. She rolled her eyes, probably never expecting me to push back this hard. I spent the next day consulting a lawyer friend. He was aghast at her nerve. He confirmed the house was mine alone, my name on the deed, purchased long before the engagement. He said her so-called eviction papers had no legal basis. They were likely just intimidation, hoping my parents would flee in confusion. Worse yet, she tried forging her ownership claims. The lawyer said this could be considered attempted fraud if she proceeded in court. I immediately told my parents to ignore any eviction notices, to stay put. They were relieved. They'd been anxious and hurt, unable to fathom why my fiancée had turned so hostile. My father kept asking, "Are you sure you want to marry someone who'd do this to us?" I had no reassuring answer. The more I thought about it, the more I realized her sense of entitlement was beyond repair. That evening, I confronted her again. I laid out the facts. My lawyer says you have no leg to stand on. If you push this, you risk legal trouble. She shrugged, unrepentant. Why make this a big deal? Just do what's best for my sister. Your parents can find somewhere else, or you can rent them an apartment, right? My jaw clenched. The audacity was staggering. She truly believed my parents were disposable. No, that's not happening. Why do you care more about your sister's convenience than my parents' well-being? She retorted, because my sister's family is expanding, she needs space. Your parents are just old. They don't need that big place. Her cold words ignited anger in my chest. That's their home. Age or size is irrelevant. You're crossing a line. I won't let you treat them like obstacles. She scoffed. Fine, let's see if you feel the same after we're married. She clearly assumed I'd ultimately fold. I glared at her, realizing all at once this wasn't just a spat. This was a fundamental clash of values. She'd do anything to serve her own family's interest, even if it meant displacing mine. Disgust roiled in my gut. Maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all, I muttered. She froze. What did you say? I met her gaze, heart pounding. I'm calling off the engagement. Her eyes widened in shock, and then fury. You wouldn't dare. You'll lose me. She tried flipping the script, painting herself as a victim. I can't believe you'd abandon me over a misunderstanding, she wailed. I'm just trying to help my sister. Doesn't that show my big heart? A big heart? I almost laughed at the twisted logic. Evicting my parents in secret was not help. I told her so, voice trembling with anger. A big heart? More like a big ego. You think you can just reorder my life to suit your sister's needs? Realizing I was dead serious, she switched tactics, pleading with me. We don't have to go through with the eviction. Let's just talk this out. But the damage was done. I saw how she was willing to lie, manipulate, and steamroll my parents to get what she wanted. That was a massive betrayal. Talk it out? I repeated. After you tried to remove my parents from their home behind my back? She tried tears. I made a mistake. I thought you'd understand once I explained. My jaw set. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door, not forging legal documents to evict family. Her tears turned to frustration. Fine, be stubborn. You'll regret losing me over some worthless old house. My blood boiled. Worthless? That house is my childhood home, and it's where my parents still live. They built their life there. You think it's worthless? Then we're definitely done. After a tense pause, I repeated firmly, the engagement is off. I'm calling my parents, telling them everything is safe, and you're out of the picture. She choked back a sob, then stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I grabbed my keys, stepping outside into the cool night air to clear my head. My phone buzzed repeatedly, her texts flipping between apologies and insults. She threatened to smear me to her family, to claim I led her on financially. I was done being intimidated. The next day I packed her belongings from my place into boxes. When she returned, I pointed to them near the door. Take these. Leave my keys. She glowered, tears streaking her face, but complied. You'll regret this, she hissed. I'll make sure your name is mud in my sister's circle. I shrugged. Do what you want. The truth is on my side. She tried one last time to coax me, claiming she'd call off the eviction, but trust was shattered. I told her to keep her false apology. Meanwhile, I texted my father all the details, reassuring him I had no part in that eviction nonsense. He thanked me, relieved to hear I'd parted ways with her. My mother's quiet sadness turned to relief once she realized we'd be free of my fiancé's manipulative presence. As expected, she launched some dirty tricks. She tried telling mutual acquaintances that I'd promised her the house as a wedding gift, painting me as a liar who reneged. Yet, whenever people pressed for evidence, she had none. They realized it was just an entitled fantasy. Some folks believed her at first, but as soon as they heard my side, they recognized who the real manipulator was. Weeks passed. She sulked around, calling and texting me sporadically. Each time, she tried a new angle. Pity, anger, guilt. She said her sister was desperate for a new place, that I'd ruined her family's plans. My reply stayed the same. You took it upon yourself to cheat my parents out of their home. That's on you. She never really apologized sincerely, only lamented that I wouldn't cooperate. Eventually, I blocked her number. She showed up once at my job, cornering me in the parking lot. I told her calmly to leave or I'd call security. She spat, "You're an idiot for losing me," before stomping off. If that was her best attempt at reconciliation, it just confirmed I'd made the right call. My parents, of course, were grateful I'd uncovered the scheme in time. No real legal harm was done since the eviction notice was bogus. The lawyer my ex hired for the fiasco quietly backed off after learning the truth. My mother shook her head in disbelief. To think she wanted to be part of our family while booting us out. My father just said, "Son, better to find out now than after the wedding." Indeed, their perspective grounded me. I dodged a bullet. Some relatives of hers tried contacting me, saying I overreacted, that I could have talked it out. But how do you talk out a betrayal so big? She literally lied about owning property she had no stake in, forging her way into an eviction process. That's not a small spat, that's a breach of trust. I told them I was done explaining. Eventually, I heard she moved in with her sister's family, ironically. They probably had to figure out a new living arrangement. Good luck to them. People started telling me she was telling sob stories about being thrown away. But I let them talk. My friends and family, plus the evidence of her bogus papers, spoke for itself. In the end, I stood by my decision. Any doubt I had melted away the day I discovered she forged a path to forcibly evict my parents. She tried entitlements and dirty tricks, but I refused to budge. The revenge, if you can call it that, was simply removing her from my life. I cut her off, watched her scramble as her plan collapsed. She faced the consequences of her own arrogance. Now, I'm moving forward without a fiancé, but with my dignity and family safe. My parents remain in the old house, as they should, unafraid of sham eviction notices. And me, I'm more cautious about who I let into my life. The heartbreak stings, but the relief of escaping that manipulative mess outweighs it.
My partner's ex demanded, "You need to step aside so we can get back together." I looked him in the eye and replied, "All right." Then I stepped aside, and my partner did something so epic that his plan collapsed into tears. Original post: I, 30 male, got ambushed at a coffee shop yesterday. My girlfriend Nina's, 28, ex Garrett, 31. We've been together for a year. Apparently, that was 1 year too long for Garrett's taste. I was waiting for Nina to join me for lunch when he slid into the seat across from me. Never met him before, but recognized him from photos. "You're Dean, right? Nina's current situation?" "I'm Dean. You're Garrett." Smiling like we're old friends. Good. Look, I'll cut to the chase. Nina and I have history. Real history. 7 years together. You've had your fun, but it's time to step aside. Excuse me? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Nina's just using you to make me jealous. It worked. I'm ready to take her back now. Me, take her back? I know this is awkward, but you seem like a decent guy. You don't want to be someone's rebound, right? That's all you are. A placeholder while she waits for me to come to my senses. The entitlement was radiating off him like cologne. And you've come to your senses? Broke up with Becca last week. Nina's been waiting for this. She texts me all the time, sends signals. You probably don't even know. What kind of signals? Leaning in conspiratorially, like posting songs we used to listen to, wearing the dress I bought her. She had lunch at our old spot last week. Come on, man, read the room. So you want me to step aside? Exactly. No hard feelings. I'll even Venmo you for this coffee. Just tell Nina you're done and let nature take its course. That's when I saw Nina approaching through the window. She'd see us in about 30 seconds. All right? Surprised? Really? Just like that? You make a compelling case. I'll step aside. Nina walked in, saw us, and froze. Her face went through about 5 different emotions. I stood up, looked Garrett in the eye, and literally stepped aside. One big step to the left. Nina, Garrett here has something to tell you. I'm stepping aside like he asked. Looking between us. What's going on? Standing up, confident. Baby, I made a mistake. I'm ready now. Broke up with Becca. We can be together again. Nina stared at him, then at me, then back at him. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. Dean understands. He's stepping aside. Tell him about us, about our connection. Nina, don't play coy. The songs you post. Wearing my dress. Going to Rosario's last week. Very quietly. The yellow dress? Yes, see, you remember. The dress I donated to Goodwill 3 years ago but kept appearing in my closet? That dress? Garrett's smile faltered. The songs on my Spotify that kept getting added to my playlist? Our restaurant that suddenly had reservations in my name I didn't make? What? Nina pulled out her phone, opened an app. Dean, remember when I installed those cameras in my apartment because someone kept moving things? I remember. She turned the phone to Garrett, his face on the screen, in her apartment, going through her closet. Nina, 6 months of footage, Garrett. You copying my keys, logging into my Spotify, booking reservations to make me remember us, moving my things, gaslighting me into thinking I was going crazy. The coffee shop was dead silent. I filed a police report last month, got a restraining order. It goes into effect Monday, but sure, tell me more about our connection. Nina, I can explain. Explain to the judge. My lawyer has everything. The footage, the credit card fraud when you used my saved info for those reservations, the harassment when you made fake dating profiles of me. You can't prove. Ring camera, bedroom camera, kitchen camera, all legal, all showing you in my space without permission. 73 separate incidents. She turned to me. Sorry I'm late, babe. Had to pick up the formal restraining order papers from my lawyer. Pulled out a manila envelope, handed it to Garrett. Nina, you've been served. Come near me again, you get arrested. And yes, I know about you telling my coworkers we were getting back together. HR has been notified. So has your employer. Garrett opened the envelope with shaking hands. Oh, and Becca? She knows everything. We had coffee yesterday. Turns out you've been stepping out on her for months to stalk me. She's filing her own restraining order. The coffee shop manager approached. Manager, is there a problem here? This man is violating a restraining order. I have the papers right here. Sir, you need to leave. Garrett looked at me desperately. You set me up. I literally just stepped aside like you asked. Update 1. That coffee shop confrontation was just the beginning. Garrett's entitlement went into overdrive. First, he tried to spin it, posted on social media about how he was trying to save Nina from a toxic relationship and how I'd manipulated the situation. The problem? Nina had receipts. So many receipts. Posted a response with security footage timestamps. Garrett in her apartment at 3 a.m. Garrett going through her underwear drawer. Garrett installing something on her laptop. Garrett taking photos of her mail. The comments were brutal. But Garrett doubled down. Started messaging Nina's friends, claiming she was having a mental health crisis and he was just checking on her welfare. Said the cameras were fake, the footage was edited. Nina's friend Keisha called me. This dude just offered me $500 to convince Nina he's the victim. Is he for real? That's when we discovered the depth of his delusion. He'd created an entire narrative where Nina was sending him secret signals to come back. Had a notebook documenting every sign. She wore blue on Tuesday, our color, posted at 11:11, our time. Bought strawberry yogurt, she knows I love strawberry. Dude had convinced himself they were in some secret relationship only he knew about. But the real escalation came when he showed up at Nina's workplace. Restraining order be damned. Nina's boss called me. Your girlfriend's ex is in the lobby with flowers and a mariachi band. Says he won't leave until she sees his grand gesture. A mariachi band. At a law firm, security removed him, but he'd live-streamed it. Fighting for true love, he captioned it. Made himself look like the romantic hero being kept from his soulmate. Nina had enough. Time for the nuclear option. See, during their 7 years together, Garrett had been very creative with his taxes. And Nina, being a paralegal, had helped him with his creative accounting. She'd kept copies. Just in case. Update 2. Nina didn't go to the IRS immediately. First, she sent Garrett one message through her lawyer. Cease all contact and harassment immediately, or documentation of tax years 2018-2023 will be forwarded to appropriate authorities. Garrett's response? He sued her for emotional blackmail and defamation. Actually, tried to get a judge to order her to destroy the evidence because it was obtained during a romantic relationship. Judge's response, Mr. Garrett, evidence of criminal activity isn't protected by any romantic privilege. Motion denied. That's when Garrett made his biggest mistake. He hired a hacker. Not a good one, apparently. The guy got caught immediately trying to access Nina's cloud storage. Cybercrimes unit traced it back to Garrett in about 4 hours. But here's the beautiful part. Nina had anticipated this. She'd worked with IT security to set up a honeypot, fake files labeled tax evidence that were actually tracking software. The moment they were accessed, it logged everything. IP addresses, device info, even took photos through the hacker's webcam. Garrett's face, clear as day, sitting next to the hacker. Federal charges: conspiracy to commit cyber fraud, attempted destruction of evidence, witness tampering. But Garrett still wasn't done. He tried one last play, the sympathy card. Made a video about his mental health struggles and how losing Nina broke him. Said he was checking into therapy. Started a podcast about healing from heartbreak. The podcast was wild. Episode titles like When Your Soulmate Chooses Wrong, Fighting for Love in a Cold World, Why Nice Guys Finish Last. He actually started getting followers, guys who'd been wronged by women. The comments section was a cesspool of entitled dudes sharing their "she led me on" stories. Then Nina dropped the bomb. Remember that hacker? He flipped. Provided evidence that Garrett had been doing this to multiple women. Nina wasn't his only soulmate. He had 4 others he was stalking. Each woman thought she was the only one. Each had restraining orders. Each had stories of break-ins, gaslighting, harassment. Nina organized them. They did a joint interview on a true crime podcast. 5 women, comparing notes, realizing they'd all been getting the same grand gestures on rotation. The podcast episode was called The Soulmate Scammer. It went viral. Update 3: Garrett's world imploded. Lost his job when employers Googled him. Lost his apartment when the landlord found out about the federal charges. Even his own family distanced themselves after hearing the full story. But rock bottom wasn't enough. He decided if he was going down, Nina was coming with him. Created a website, The Truth About Nina. Posted edited videos, fabricated text messages, claimed she was the real stalker, said she'd seduced and destroyed him. One problem: he used photos of Nina without permission, including some he'd taken through her windows. Copyright infringement, invasion of privacy, violation of the restraining order, more charges. But the real justice came from an unexpected source. Becca, his ex who he dumped to win back Nina. Turns out Becca was an IRS auditor. Yeah, she couldn't officially investigate him, but she could flag his case for review. And boy, did it get reviewed. 7 years of tax fraud, claiming personal expenses as business, fake charitable donations, unreported income from his side business, selling How to Win Your Ex Back courses online. I kid you not. The number they came up with? $186,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. His soulmate scammer reputation meant no one would hire him. The IRS was garnishing whatever wages he could get. The federal charges were pending. Multiple restraining orders meant he couldn't go most places in town. Last week was the final court date for the cybercrimes charges. Nina asked me to come for support. Garrett looked rough, suit too big, hair unwashed, representing himself because no lawyer would take his case pro bono. His defense? I was in love. The prosecutor's response? 70 slides of evidence, security footage, digital trails, witness testimony from 5 women. Guilty on all counts. 18 months federal prison, 3 years probation, lifetime ban on contacting any of the victims. As they led him away, he yelled, "Nina, tell them the truth. Tell them about our love." Nina, calmly, "The truth is you need help, Garrett, and now you'll have 18 months to get it." Final update. Moving forward. It's been 3 months since Garrett went to federal prison. Life is remarkably normal now. Nina and I are doing great. The experience actually brought us closer. Nothing says relationship strength like surviving a stalker ex together. She's in therapy, working through the gaslighting trauma. Turns out thinking you're going crazy because someone's secretly moving your stuff really messes with your head. The other women Garrett stalked formed a support group. They meet monthly, call themselves Survivors of Soulmates. Dark humor helps. The best part? Nina's become an advocate for stalking victims, shares her story to help others recognize the signs. Her TikTok about red flags that seem romantic has 2 million views. Got a letter from Garrett last week, forwarded it to the authorities unopened. Part of his sentence was no contact, even from prison. But his mom reached out to apologize. "I always knew something was off," she said. The way he talked about girlfriends like possessions, I should have done more. At least someone in his family gets it. The IRS is still pursuing the tax case. Turns out 18 months in prison doesn't pause interest accumulation. He'll come out owing close to $200,000. Sometimes Nina and I joke about that coffee shop moment. How confident he was that I'd just disappear. How sure he was that she was waiting for him. Thanks for stepping aside, she'll say. Anytime, I reply. Best step I ever took. Because here's the thing about entitled people like Garrett. They're so focused on their own narrative, they can't see reality. He was so busy creating signs and signals that he missed the actual sign. 5 restraining orders and federal charges. Nina didn't need me to protect her. She had cameras, lawyers, evidence, and a spine of steel. All I did was literally what he asked. Stepped aside and let her handle it. The yellow dress, by the way? We found it in a storage unit he'd rented, along with dozens of other items he'd stolen from his victims over the years. Trophies, the detective called them. Nina burned it, made s'mores over the fire, said it was the best closure ritual ever. Garrett thought he was the main character in some grand romance. Turns out he was just a criminal who's really bad at taxes. And that's how you properly step aside. My wife, after I survived the accident, arranged. It was a tragic mistake. Forgive me, let's not divorce. I replied. Then I presented the dash cam footage of her sabotaging my brakes to the police and the divorce court. She's now facing legal charges instead of a settlement. I, 45 male, am still trying to process the last few weeks. It feels like I'm watching a movie of someone else's life. 3 weeks ago, I nearly didn't make it home. It was a Wednesday, left work, same route I always take. Approached the big intersection by the park, lights turned yellow, so I went to slow down. Pedal went soft, not completely gone, but not right. Pumped it, managed to slow enough to swerve onto a side street, bumping the curb hard and taking out a no parking sign. Airbag didn't deploy, thankfully. But I was shaken, badly. My old sedan was definitely not drivable. Called my wife, Mary, 42. She was there in 20 minutes, full of panic and concern. Oh my God, James, are you okay? What happened? She was fluttering around, checking me for injuries. I just said the brakes felt weird, maybe a leak. She hugged me tight, said, "Thank God you're alive. It must have been terrifying. A tragic accident." The car got towed to our usual mechanic. I was mostly okay, couple of bruises, whiplashy neck. Mary was super attentive for the next few days. Kept saying how it could have been so much worse, how it was a wake-up call for us to appreciate each other. Felt a bit much, but I figured she was just scared. Something kept bugging me though. The brakes were serviced like 6 months ago. My car has a newer, high-quality dash cam. Front and rear. Records on motion even when parked. It has a pretty wide angle and decent night vision. I'd also recently installed a new security camera covering the driveway after a neighbor's car was broken into. Sunday evening, Mary was out with her sister, Patricia. I was bored, idly thinking about the car, and decided to pull the footage from both, just to see if there was anything weird leading up to it. What I found made my blood turn to ice. The security camera footage from the driveway, the night before the accident. Around 2 a.m. Clear as day under the security light, Mary. She crept out of the house, went to my car. She had a small wrench and a little bottle of something. She knelt down by the front driver's side wheel, fiddling with something for a good 10 minutes. The car's front dash cam, triggered by her movement, caught her approaching and then being at the front of the vehicle. It even showed her looking towards the windshield. A slight hesitation before she opened the hood. While the dashcam couldn't see exactly what she poured from its angle, combined with the security camera showing her actions with the bottle at the front of the car and her being under the hood, the implication was sickening. My stomach dropped. The mechanic later confirmed a contaminant in the brake fluid, something that would degrade the system, and noted tool marks on a brake line fitting. Space to think wasn't what she was giving me. It felt like she was trying to make sure I wouldn't be thinking at all. Permanently. She came home later that night, all smiles, asked how I was feeling. I just nodded, said better. Didn't let on. The next day, Monday, I took the SD cards and the security system footage to a specialist to make authenticated copies. Then I went to a lawyer. Then, with my lawyer present, I went to the police. Mary texted me Tuesday morning something about lunch. I just replied, we need to talk tonight, about the car. That evening, she came into the study. Mary, hey, you okay? You've been quiet? Still thinking about that awful accident? Mary, the police are looking into the accident. They have some questions based on what they found. Her face went pale. The police? Why? What could they have found? It was just an accident. A mechanical failure. You said so yourself. Me, my initial thought, yes, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Mary, James, what are you implying? That's a horrible thing to even suggest, after I was so worried about you. She started to get agitated. Are you saying I had something to do with it? That's insane. It was only when I calmly stated, they have security footage from the driveway, Mary, and the dash cam, that her composure completely shattered. Then the crocodile tears started, the desperate denials morphing. Okay, maybe I looked at the car. I was worried, but I wouldn't. It was a tragic mistake. I was stressed, not thinking. Forgive me, James, please. Let's not divorce over some misunderstanding. She actually tried to hug me. I just stepped back. Me. The footage of you with a wrench and a bottle by my car at 2 a.m. isn't a misunderstanding. The police have it all, so does my divorce lawyer. Her face, I'll never forget it. Not anger, not sadness. Pure, cold panic. She just stared. Me, you won't need to worry about a settlement. You'll be too busy with your criminal defense. Update 1, 4 weeks later. Well, it's been a month since I dropped that bomb on Mary, and boy has the drama ramped up. The entitlement is off the charts. So, the police didn't arrest her on the spot, obviously. They're building a case, which takes time. Detective Robert, the lead investigator, has been pretty communicative. He said the combination of the security footage showing her actions, the dashcam placing her there too, and the mechanic's report about the specific contaminant and tool marks makes a strong preliminary case. Mary got herself a lawyer, a real shark type named Mr. Michael. The day after our little chat, he was calling my lawyer, Miss Linda, trying to spin it as a misunderstanding, saying Mary was distraught, not herself, and that the footage was circumstantial and misinterpreted. Claims she was just anxiously checking the car because she was worried about its safety after reading about recalls online. At 2 a.m., with tools and a strange bottle. Right. Then came the Mary Sympathy Tour, starring her sister Patricia and their mom Jennifer. Patricia cornered me at the grocery store last week, didn't even say hello. Patricia, James, you have to stop this. You're destroying Mary. She made a mistake, okay? A stupid, crazy mistake because she's been under so much stress. You know how she gets when she's not thinking clearly. Patricia, the evidence points to something far more deliberate than a whoopsie moment. She wouldn't. Not really. Maybe she just wanted to damage the car a bit to scare you, to make you pay more attention to her. You've been distant. The audacity. Blaming me. I just walked away. Her mom, Jennifer, is worse. She called me sobbing. Jennifer, James, how can you do this to my baby girl? She loves you. She's a good person. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. That the video is grainy. It could be anything. You're twisting it. She needs help, not prison. Think of our family. Me, Jennifer. I am thinking of family. I'm thinking about how she almost took me away from mine. The evidence is clear. This conversation is over. Hung up. Miss Linda advised me to log all such contacts. The dirty tricks started about 2 weeks ago. First, a call from my boss. Apparently, an anonymous source expressed concern about my mental stability following my traumatic accident. Claimed I was paranoid, making baseless accusations, and obsessively reviewing security footage. Luckily, my boss knows me well, and I'd already given him a discreet heads-up that something serious was going on with my impending divorce and a related police matter. He dismissed it, but it was a clear attempt to mess with my job. Classic Mary. Then, some of our mutual friends started getting weird. Texts like, "Hey man, heard Mary is going through a lot. Hope you're not being too hard on her." Some were clearly buying her narrative that I was overreacting to her checking on the car and that she was the victim of my sudden vendetta. Others just seemed to want to stay out of it, which was its own kind of frustrating. She's clearly spinning a tale, conveniently leaving out the details of the footage and the police investigation. Ms. Linda filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and, crucially, referencing the ongoing criminal investigation. We're not pushing for any immediate financial settlements beyond securing assets, because the criminal case outcome will likely influence things heavily. We did apply for an emergency order for her to vacate the house. It wasn't instant. Took about a week of legal back and forth, with Mr. Michael fighting it, arguing she had nowhere to go, despite her sister and mother apparently being very supportive. The judge, after Miss Linda carefully laid out the situation with a copy of the initial police report summary, finally granted it, giving her 72 hours. She's now staying with Patricia. The highlight of last week? Mary actually had the gall to text me, breaking the no contact except through lawyers rule that Miss Linda had to practically scream at Mr. Michael. "James, I need my jewelry from the safe and my summer clothes, and several specific kitchen appliances. You're being so cruel keeping my things." I screenshotted it, sent it to Miss Linda, and didn't reply. My lawyer is arranging a supervised time for her to collect essential personal belongings, and reiterated that division of other property would be handled formally. The police are still building their case meticulously. Detective Robert said the DA is very interested, but wants an airtight case before filing formal charges. The waiting is stressful, not gonna lie. Every phone call makes me jump. But watching her entitlement and her family's attempts to gaslight me just solidifies my resolve. She didn't just make a mistake, she made a calculated decision. Now she gets to live with the calculated consequences. Final update, 6 months later. It's been just over 6 months since my life turned into a true crime podcast. Figured I owed a final update. Mary was formally charged with aggravated assault and reckless endangerment about 4 months ago. Attempted murder was harder to prove intent for beyond a shadow of a doubt with just the footage, as her lawyer argued she panicked and didn't intend serious harm. But the assault charge linked to the brake tampering was solid. Her lawyer, Mr. Michael, tried every trick in the book during pretrial motions, claimed she was sleepwalking, claimed she was having a psychotic break, claimed the security footage was tampered with by me. The expert analysis and chain of custody shut that down quick. He argued the dashcam footage was inconclusive on its own. It was a slog. The fallout among friends was interesting. Once the charges were public, some of the people who'd questioned me went silent or actually apologized. Others simply drifted away, clearly uncomfortable with the whole mess. A few diehards continued to parrot Mary's misunderstood woman narrative. Patricia and Jennifer, though? They doubled down. Jennifer even tried to give a tearful interview to some local gossip blogger about how her sweet, gentle Mary was being railroaded by a vindictive husband and a flawed justice system. It backfired spectacularly when the blogger dug up the public record details of the charges and the evidence summary. The divorce proceedings moved in parallel, often waiting on developments in the criminal case. Miss Linda was a rock star. When the security and dashcam footage were formally entered as evidence in the criminal case, along with the mechanic's forensic report, we submitted it all in the divorce. Mr. Michael argued it was prejudicial and irrelevant to asset division in a no-fault state. Miss Linda's response was gold. While this state operates on no-fault principles for dissolution, my client's physical safety and the respondent's attempts to cause him grievous harm, potentially to inherit or control assets, are exceptionally relevant to ensuring an equitable, not necessarily equal, division and determining issues like spousal support and legal fee contributions. Mary's entitlement never wavered. During one particularly tense mediation session, court-ordered, what a joke, she actually looked me in the eye and said, "James, if you just told the police you misinterpreted the video, that I was just checking for a suspected brake fluid leak you'd mentioned, we could sort all this out. I'd even consider a smaller settlement. You know I can't survive on my own." I just stared at her until Miss Linda told her that her version of events was contradicted by all available evidence and was not a basis for negotiation. The dirty tricks continued. Patricia tried to plaster posters around my neighborhood saying I was emotionally abusive and driving Mary to a breakdown. They lasted about half a day before someone, not me I swear, but I'd buy them a beer, took them all down. Then, an anonymous complaint to animal control that I was neglecting my non-existent dog. It was so ridiculous it was almost funny. Almost. Each stunt was documented and handed to Miss Linda, who noted a pattern of harassment, which she later presented as evidence of Mary's ongoing malicious conduct. The climax: Mary, facing overwhelming evidence and the prospect of a much harsher sentence if convicted at trial, finally took a plea deal about 2 months ago. This came after months of legal wrangling and her lawyer realizing the DA wasn't bluffing. She pled guilty to a lesser felony assault charge and tampering with a motor vehicle. Her sentence, handed down last month, 5 years with parole eligibility after 2, plus mandatory therapy. Mr. Michael tried to argue for probation, citing her fragile mental state, lack of prior offenses, and remorse, which no one but him seemed to witness. The judge wasn't having it, stating that the calculated nature of the act, the use of specific tools, and the extreme potential for lethal consequences demonstrated a clear danger to the victim and society. Jennifer wailed in court. Patricia glared at me like I was the one who put Mary in that position. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. With her felony conviction directly related to endangering my life, Miss Linda successfully argued that Mary's conduct amounted to egregious fault and an attempt to dissipate marital assets, i.e., me, the primary earner. The judge, in the final ruling, noted that while asset division aims for equitable, the respondent's criminal actions designed to harm the plaintiff were a severe factor. I was awarded the house, which I'm now selling to move somewhere with 0 Mary memories, and a larger share of the marital investments. My pension was untouched. She got her personal items and a small buyout, much of which will likely be consumed by Mr. Michael's fees. No spousal support was awarded, with the judge citing her conduct as the primary reason. It wasn't a dramatic speech, but Miss Linda said the written judgment was scathing about Mary's actions. Mary is currently in a state correctional facility. Heard through the grapevine, a former mutual acquaintance who is definitely not on her side anymore, that she's already complaining about the food and the uncouth inmates. The shock of actual consequences, not just Mommy and Patricia fixing everything, must be immense. Jennifer and Patricia still send me hateful messages occasionally, which I forward to Miss Linda, who is considering a harassment order if they don't stop. They blame me for not being a man and forgiving her mistake. Some people are just determined to live in denial. Me, James? I'm healing. It's a process. Sold the death trap car for scrap, obviously. The new place I'm looking at has a really good security system. The biggest feeling is relief. The constant tension is gone. The revenge, if you can call it that, wasn't some grand, devious plan on my part. It was just me, methodically handing the evidence of her actions to the people whose job it is to deal with it, and enduring the often slow, frustrating grind of the legal system. She built her own prison, literally. I just held the door open by telling the truth and protecting myself. The silence in my house now is peaceful. I'm starting to sleep through the night again. It's strange to think how close I came to not being here. But I am, and she isn't. And that, I've realized, is the most satisfying justice of all. Time to find a new coffee machine. Mine. My soon-to-be fiancée secretly planned a reunion trip with her ex for the week after our wedding. At our engagement, I got down on one knee and proposed we cancel. Then I showed both our families her itinerary. She was left frantically trying to explain her other honeymoon. I, 32 male, thought Sarah, 29, was the one. I really did. We'd been together for 4 years, living together for 2. We talked about the future like it was a blueprint we were drawing up together. The house with the big backyard for the dog we'd get, the silly little traditions we'd start, the whole 9 yards. The ring, a simple, elegant emerald cut that I knew she'd love, had been sitting in my sock drawer for 2 months. Our families were finally meeting at what was supposed to be our engagement party. A nice restaurant, private room, soft lighting, perfect. The week before the party, I was looking for a misplaced warranty for my laptop in our shared desk. I wasn't snooping. But when I opened her drawer, a flash of a confirmation email on her tablet, which she'd left unlocked, caught my eye. It was for a resort, a name I recognized instantly. My heart hammered. Why would she book that without me? Driven by a sudden sickening dread, I did something I'd never done. I looked deeper. The email was from a travel agent. A quick search of her email for the agent's name brought up the entire chain. And that's where I found it. The full itinerary. A 10-day trip for 2 people. The dates were what made my blood run cold. They started 6 days after our planned wedding date. The confirmation was under her name, and the name of her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Noah. I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't just a trip, it was the trip. The one she and I had talked about for our honeymoon. The same resort, the same private bungalow with the plunge pool. She had told me it was completely booked for the next year. A lie. So slick, so easy. The email chain was sickeningly cheerful, with her referring to it as a much-needed special reunion. My first instinct was just a roar of white noise, a primitive urge to smash something, to confront her, to demand an explanation. But then a strange sort of calm washed over me, cold and sharp. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a methodical, calculated deception. A hysterical, screaming fight was what she would expect. It would allow her to paint me as unhinged, to twist the narrative. No, her plan was meticulous. My response had to be too. This wasn't an emotional outburst. It had to be a controlled demolition, ensuring the truth was revealed to everyone at once, leaving no room for her lies to take root. I saved the entire email chain as a PDF. I took screenshots of the flight confirmations and hotel booking. I put everything on a thumb drive and then printed 3 copies. I closed her email, locked the tablet, and put it back exactly where it was. She never knew. For the next 4 days, I was the perfect, doting boyfriend. It was the hardest performance of my life. I helped with final party arrangements. I listened to her talk about seating charts. I kissed her good morning and good night. Every touch, every smile was a lie, and it tasted like ash in my mouth. But I held it together. The pain was a physical thing, a cold, heavy weight in my chest, but it sharpened my focus. She had a plan. Now, so did I. The night of the engagement party arrived. Our families were all there. My parents and sister, her parents and her older brother. Everyone was mingling, laughing. Sarah was glowing, squeezing my hand, telling everyone how excited she was. I watched her, this woman I thought I knew, and felt nothing but a profound, chilling emptiness. After the main course, I stood up, clinking my glass for attention. If I could have everyone's attention, I started, my voice steady. Sarah beamed at me, thinking this was it. As you all know, I love Sarah very much. For 4 years, she has been my world. And I've been so excited about taking the next step with her. I walked to the center of the room, near where she was sitting. I saw the anticipation in her eyes, the little smile playing on her lips. I got down on one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth. My mother was already tearing up. I looked directly into Sarah's eyes. I have a very important question to ask you. It's about our future. She leaned forward, whispering, Yes, oh my God, yes. I pulled out the velvet box, but I didn't open it. I propose, I said, my voice carrying through the suddenly silent room, that we cancel the wedding. Her smile froze. It was like watching a statue crack. What? What are you talking about? I think you know what I'm talking about, I said, still on one knee, my voice soft but clear. But in case you don't, I brought something to jog your memory. I reached into my suit pocket and pulled out the printed copies. Not the originals, never the originals. I handed a set to her parents, a set to mine. This, I announced to the room, is an itinerary for a 10-day trip, a romantic getaway. The thing is, it's not for us. It's for Sarah and her ex, Noah. And it's for the week directly following our wedding. A second honeymoon, I guess you could call it. The emails call it a special reunion. The silence was deafening. I watched Sarah's face crumble as her father opened the papers. He read the names, then looked at his daughter with an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. My mom just stared at me, her brow furrowed in confusion and concern. I believe the term for this is having your cake and eating it too, I continued, finally standing up. So Sarah, my proposal is this. You can have the trip, you can have Noah, but you can't have me. You can't have my family. And you can't have this wedding. I placed the unopened ring box on the table in front of her. Enjoy your trip, I said. Then I turned to our bewildered families. I'm so sorry, everyone. It seems there's been a change of plans. I walked out of that restaurant without looking back, leaving Sarah in the wreckage of her own making, frantically trying to explain her other honeymoon to a room full of people who, just moments before, had been celebrating her future. My future. Update. The silence lasted for about 12 hours. Then the storm broke. My phone started blowing up around 10 a.m. the next morning. A barrage of texts from Sarah, swinging wildly from furious, "How could you humiliate me like that? You're a monster," to pleading, "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Please, we can fix this." I didn't respond to a single one. Engaging would be like wrestling in the mud. Her actions were the issue, not my reaction. Then came the emails. Long, rambling justifications. Noah had reached out. He was going through something. She just wanted closure. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. The most telling part? Not once did she say, "I'm sorry for betraying you." It was always, "I'm sorry you found out," or "I'm sorry you're hurt." It wasn't all sympathy. I got a blistering text from her maid of honor, calling me a vindictive psycho for what I did. I didn't reply. What's the point? Her brother Jesse called me. His tone wasn't just disappointed, it was conflicted. "Man, I don't know what to say, she's a mess." "But you had to do it like that?" "How else, Jesse?" I asked calmly. A quiet conversation where she could lie and twist it. She made a public betrothal into a sham. I felt the public deserved to know. "When you read those emails, what did it look like to you?" He was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, it looked bad, really bad." The first practical matter was our apartment. We were both on the lease, but I'd paid the $2,850 security deposit. I had the bank receipt. I sent a formal email to Sarah copying our landlord. Subject: lease at apartment address. "Sarah, I will be vacating. I will coordinate with the landlord regarding the security deposit I paid. Please let me know your intentions for the lease." The landlord's reply was professional and exactly what I expected. He stated that, per the lease agreement, any security deposit refund at the end of the term would be issued via a single check made out to both tenants. He couldn't legally cut her out of it, regardless of who paid. He also noted that for her to remain, she would have to requalify on her own income. It was the first bureaucratic hurdle, and I knew it would be a fight. Then came Noah, the man himself. He sent me a message on social media. "Noah, hey man, you need to back off. You're harassing Sarah. Whatever you think happened, you've got it wrong. She told me you were a controlling asshole and I see it now." The sheer audacity. I typed back. Tell me, does your girlfriend Teresa know you were planning a special reunion with my fiancé? Because I have the receipts." His tone shifted instantly. "Stay the hell away from my girlfriend. This has nothing to do with her. You threaten me again and you'll regret it." The empty bluster of a man who'd been caught. He didn't deny it. He just tried to intimidate me. So I made my next move. I found Teresa on social media. With a deep breath, I attached the PDFs. "Teresa, I am so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know the truth about what your boyfriend Noah was planning with my now ex-fiancé." I hit send. It felt awful, but necessary. They made their choices together. They could face the consequences together. Update. The past month has been a slow, grinding process of dismantling a life. I moved out, taking only my personal effects. I left the shared items, photographing everything to document the apartment's pristine condition. Sarah was there, her tactics shifting from tears to entitlement. "You can't just leave me with all the bills," she said. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm disconnecting the utilities and internet, which are in my name, on the 30th. You'll need to set them up in your own name if you qualify to take over the lease." Her face fell. It wasn't the emotional reaction she wanted. It was a logistical one she hadn't prepared for. The streaming accounts were next. I didn't see a new profile on Netflix. It was more subtle. The continue watching was suddenly filled with gritty British crime dramas and stand-up specials I knew for a fact she hated, but that Noah's old profile picture on social media suggested he'd love. It was a small, intimate sign of his presence in our space. I changed every password and logged all devices out. The real challenge was the furniture. We'd bought a new sofa and dining set a few months back on in-store financing. The account was in my name. The first payment after I moved out was due. I called the finance company. I explained the situation. The woman on the phone was sympathetic but firm. "I understand, sir, but as the primary account holder, you are legally responsible for the full amount of the loan, regardless of who has the furniture." This I expected. "And what happens if payments are not made?" I asked. "Well, after a period of non-payment, the account would go into default," she explained. It would be reported to the credit bureaus, which would negatively impact your credit score. Eventually, we would pursue action to recover the merchandise or the funds. Here was my choice: pay for furniture for my cheating ex, or take a deliberate, calculated hit to my own financial health to ensure she didn't get to keep it. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I looked at my credit score online, a number I'd worked hard to build, and I thought about her sitting on that sofa with him. "I understand," I told the woman. "I will not be making any further payments on this account." I hung up. It wasn't a clean, easy revenge. It was a decision that cost me something, but it was a price I was willing to pay. Teresa did reply to my message. It took her a week. She said she confronted Noah, and after a series of pathetic lies, he finally admitted it. She kicked him out. Her message was short, but I could feel the pain in it. She thanked me for the truth. There was no satisfaction in it for me, just a grim sense of solidarity. Final update. It's strange how much can change in half a year. The noise has finally faded, replaced by a quiet sense of order. Justice isn't always a lightning bolt. Sometimes it's just the slow, methodical resolution of paperwork. The apartment situation resolved itself, but not without one last fight. Sarah failed to qualify for the lease on her own and had to move out. As the landlord predicted, the security deposit check arrived, made out to me and Sarah. I emailed her, asking her to sign it over. Her reply: "Absolutely not. That's my money too. For my pain and suffering." I replied with a screenshot of my original bank transfer for the deposit and a link to the state's small claims court filing website. "Sarah, you can endorse the check, or I can file a claim for the full amount plus filing fees. Your choice." 3 days later, the endorsed check was in my mailbox. The furniture was repossessed about 2 months after I stopped payments. My credit took the hit, and it stung. But Jesse told me the retrieval company showed up, and Sarah, after initially refusing them entry, had to stand there and watch them haul away the sofa and dining set from her now almost empty apartment. A small, petty victory, but one I had paid for. The final step was the small claims court filing for the other big-ticket items: the TV, sound system, mattress. The wait for the court date felt like forever. In court, she didn't just claim they were gifts. She tried to argue that she was owed them. "He destroyed my life and my reputation. He owes me that much," she told the judge. The judge was a no-nonsense woman who was clearly unimpressed. She looked at my pristine receipts and bank statements. "This court doesn't deal in emotional damages, ma'am. It deals in property and proof of ownership. Judgment for the plaintiff." She shot me a look of pure hatred. In her mind, she will always be the victim. I'm okay with that. I heard Sarah and Noah actually tried to make a go of it. It lasted about 2 months. Their relationship was founded on deceit, and it couldn't survive the harsh light of reality: her financial troubles, his own baggage. It turns out a special reunion isn't so special when it's all you have left. I'm rebuilding. My credit score is slowly recovering. I have my own place, filled with things that are unequivocally mine. I took a solo trip a few months ago. There are still moments when the ghost of that betrayal visits. But it passes. My dad, in a moment of wisdom, told me, "You didn't just dodge a bullet, you disarmed a bomb." People like Sarah don't have grand epiphanies. They don't learn. They just find new people to star in their dramas, forever blaming the world for the consequences they create. I'm no longer a character in her story. I'm writing my own now, and for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to the next chapter.